Tensions between Israel and Hezbollah reached a boiling point tonight, leading to a dramatic escalation of violence. Following Hezbollah's relentless attacks yesterday and today, the Israeli Air Force launched a series of airstrikes in Lebanon and along the Syrian border in the early hours of this morning. Hezbollah, backed by Iran, retaliated by firing a massive barrage of rockets at Israel and testing the capabilities of the Iron Dome defense system. As both sides prepare for an all-out war, all foreign citizens in Lebanon are being evacuated. Let's take a closer look at the last-minute and very striking developments of the conflict. A few hours ago, a large number of Iron Dome interventions were seen over the Galilee Panhandle during rocket attacks from Lebanon. Sirens sounded in Kiryat Shmona and some nearby settlements. Hezbollah says it fired dozens of rockets at Israel, several impacts reported. Hezbollah says it fired dozens of Katyusha rockets at Israel. Iran-backed Hezbollah says its latest attack was in response to Israeli strikes on Kfar Kela and Deir Syrian in Lebanon, in which it claims civilians were injured. Most of the rockets were intercepted by the Iron Dome system. Israeli local authorities say several impacts were detected near Beit Hillel. The Ynet news website reports that a fire broke out in the area. At the moment, the Israeli Iron Dome has intercepted Hezbollah rockets, but the situation is very tense. The Israeli War Cabinet has convened and is prepared for all-out war. During the day, the Israel Defense Forces said it had struck Hezbollah targets in South Lebanon and confirmed a drone strike on an earlier operation. This evening, the Israel Defense Forces reported that warplanes struck Hezbollah buildings and other infrastructure facilities in Kfar Kela in southern Lebanon. The Israel Defense Forces also confirmed that a Hezbollah member was killed in a drone strike in the village of Deir Syrian earlier today. The statement followed a reported Israeli airstrike this evening on the village of Deir Syrian in southern Lebanon. The Israel Defense Forces, IDF, also reported that Israeli warplanes today struck several Hezbollah buildings in Ter Harfa and Kfar Kela in southern Lebanon. Israeli army tanks also shelled Hezbollah positions in Rab al-Talatin. Meanwhile, Hezbollah claimed responsibility for several rocket attacks on Israeli communities and IDF outposts along the border in the upper and western parts of the Galilee. The Israel Defense Forces reported that at least one shell hit the community of Avivim, causing no injuries. In addition, the military reportedly shelled launching bases in southern Lebanon with artillery. Also at noon today, Hezbollah claimed that Israel had hit a convoy of trucks on the Syrian-Lebanese border. A source close to Hezbollah said Israel attacked a convoy of trucks entering Lebanon from Syria. 3 Israeli airstrikes targeted a convoy of tankers in the Hosh al-Sayyid Ali area on the Syrian-Lebanese border, injuring a Syrian driver, the source said in a statement. He added that this was the latest in a series of Israeli airstrikes on the border area. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights also reported Israeli strikes on Syrian territory near the Lebanese border, but did not mention any casualties. The UK-based observatory, citing sources inside Syria, said the strikes targeted an area near a border crossing between Lebanon and Syria used by Hezbollah to transport trucks and members of the group. One attack targeted a convoy of lorries, while the other targeted a farm outside the city of Qusair in Homs province, the observatory said. Iranian-backed Hezbollah has a strong presence on both sides of the eastern part of the Lebanese-Syrian border, where it supports the regime of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. On the other hand, the Israeli army is on high alert. It is reported that Israeli leaders who are preparing for an attack on many fronts are discussing the readiness for a possible total war. Israel is preparing for possible attacks by Iran and Hezbollah in the coming days and assesses that they may come from several fronts. Channel 12 reported Israel's security services are on the highest level of alert, and members of the U.S.-led international coalition aimed at preventing such attacks are ready to deter and prevent them. The Israeli leadership is holding discussions on how Israel will respond to such attacks, including readiness to engage in an all-out war in this context. As such, the Home Front Command's instructions to the public have not changed. The IDF emphasized that if anything changes, the public will be informed immediately. The television report quoted an editorial in today's issue of Iran's pro-regime Kayhan newspaper warning that, unlike Iran's attack on Israel in April, which was almost completely thwarted, this time the attack would target strategic centers in the Israeli interior, such as Tel Aviv and Haifa, and the homes of Israeli officials. The television report also said that Shiite militias in Iraq were threatening to attack both Israel and U.S. targets. Iran has influenced Israel by canceling flights of several foreign airlines and raising concern among Israelis about an impending attack, the report said, while the assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in an Iranian Revolutionary Guard guest house in the heart of Tehran on Wednesday morning has left the regime feeling deeply penetrated and completely open to Israeli intelligence. Amid fears of war, the U.S. and Britain have called on their citizens to leave Lebanon by any means possible. The American and British governments urged their citizens in Lebanon on Saturday to leave the country as soon as possible, citing rising tensions with Israel as they brace for Iran and Hezbollah's response to last week's high-level assassinations. The U.S. Embassy in Lebanon also urged its citizens on Saturday to leave Lebanon on any available ticket. The warning came a few days after the U.S. raised its travel warning for the country to Do Not Travel Level 4 on Wednesday, citing heightened tensions between Hezbollah and Israel. The U.S. Embassy's statement on Saturday said that despite the suspension and cancellation of flights, commercial transportation options are available to leave Lebanon. We encourage those wishing to leave Lebanon to book any ticket available to them, even if the flight does not depart immediately or follow their first-choice itinerary, the statement said. The British Foreign Secretary called on British citizens in Lebanon to leave the country immediately. The British government has called on its citizens in Lebanon to leave the country immediately, amid fears of an all-out war between Israel and Hezbollah and a wider regional conflict. Tensions are high, and the situation could deteriorate rapidly, says British Foreign Secretary David Lammy in a statement. As we work day and night to strengthen our consular presence in Lebanon, my message to British citizens there is clear. Leave now. Air France and Transavia have cancelled flights to Beirut until Tuesday due to regional tensions. France, Master. Air France KLM has announced that flights to Beirut by Air France and low-cost carrier Transavia France will remain suspended until at least Tuesday due to security concerns in the region. The two French airlines first stopped serving the route on Monday, a day after Israel vowed to retaliate following rocket fire from Lebanon that killed 12 children in the town of Maid al-Shams. Tel Aviv flights will continue as normal, a spokesman said in a statement. Last week, after 12 children and teenagers were killed in a rocket attack by Iran-backed Hezbollah in the Golan Heights on 27 July, many countries issued emergency travel warnings to Lebanon, while Israel said it would make Hezbollah pay a heavy price for the attack. Following the Hezbollah attack, the British Foreign Office urged the British to avoid any travel to Lebanon and called on citizens of Germany, Ireland, and the Netherlands to leave the country immediately. Sweden, Norway, Belgium, and Denmark also reiterated their calls for their citizens to leave Lebanon. In a video sent to X on Wednesday, Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong said, "My message to Australian citizens and residents in Lebanon is, now is the time to leave. If you are in Australia and are thinking of traveling to Lebanon, don't." Poland also updated its travel guidance on Friday in light of the escalating situation, advising its citizens not to travel to Lebanon or Israel as the country's national airline canceled flights to the countries. Poland also advised against traveling to Iran. Arab media reported on Friday that Hezbollah had evacuated senior personnel from its strongholds in the southern suburbs of Beirut in anticipation of possible Israeli attacks. Jordan urged its citizens to leave Lebanon as soon as possible. The Jordanian Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a statement calling on all Jordanian citizens in Lebanon to leave the country as soon as possible due to developments in the region and concerns for the safety of its citizens. It is also stated that those planning to travel to Lebanon should not travel. Canada warned its citizens to avoid any kind of travel to Israel. Canada warned its citizens to avoid any kind of travel to Israel, stating that the regional armed conflict jeopardizes security. In the travel warning issued by the Canadian government to raise the risk level for traveling to Israel, the Canadian government stated, the security situation may worsen without any warning. In the travel warning, if armed conflict intensifies, it could affect your ability to leave by commercial means. Closure of airspace may lead to travel disruptions, including flight cancellations and diversions. Sweden announced it would close its embassy in Beirut after urging thousands of its citizens to leave Lebanon over fears that the war in Gaza could escalate into a region-wide conflict. This week's assassinations of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh and senior Hezbollah commander Fuad Shukr heightened regional tensions during the Israel-Hamas war. The Foreign Ministry has instructed its staff to leave Beirut and go to Cyprus, and the Foreign Ministry plans to temporarily move its embassy, Foreign Minister Tobias Billström told Swedish radio. The decision was taken initially for the month of August, but could be extended depending on the security situation, he said. The ministry is closely following developments, it says. According to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, up to 10,000 Swedish citizens are likely to have traveled to Lebanon this summer. This is contrary to the travel warning for the country, which has been in place since October 2023. I call on Swedes in Lebanon to leave the country in every possible way while there is still time, it says. Meanwhile, Iran has responded to conflicting reports that Haniyeh was planted with a bomb. A short-range bullet killed Haniyeh. Iran's Revolutionary Guard said a short-range bullet was behind the killing of Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh, denying claims by state television that the assassination was carried out by an explosive device planted earlier in the building. Reiterating its call for retaliation, the television statement said a rocket with a 7-kilogram, about 15 pounds warhead was used to target Haniyeh's residence in the capital Tehran on Wednesday, causing heavy destruction. Details on the location of the residence were not provided. The statement also said that the United States supported the attack, while Iran blamed Israel for the attack. Haniyeh was in Iran to attend the swearing-in ceremony of newly elected Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian. The action was designed and carried out by the Zionist regime and supported by the United States, the Guard said in a statement. The warmonger and the Zionist regime will be severely punished at the appropriate time, place, and capacity, it added. Meanwhile, earlier today, Iran's permanent mission to the United Nations warned that Hezbollah would strike wider and deeper civilian and military targets in response to the Israeli attack that resulted in the killing of senior commander Fuad Shukr in Beirut earlier this week. Iran said on Saturday that it expected the Tehran-backed Lebanon-based Hezbollah would no longer limit itself to military targets and would launch deeper attacks inside Israel after Israel killed Hezbollah military commander Fuad Shukr. The warning came amid growing fears of a major escalation in the region and a continuation of cross-border clashes between Israel and Hezbollah. Hezbollah began attacking Israel after Hamas launched an offensive against Israel from Gaza on 7 October. However, according to a statement from Iran's representative office at the United Nations, Israel's attack on a densely populated residential area in South Beirut has changed Lebanese Hezbollah's calculations. Israel said Shukr was responsible for the rocket attack that killed 12 children and teenagers playing football in the Golan Heights, and that he had been directing Hezbollah attacks on Israel since the start of the Gaza war. A few hours after Shukr was killed, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard announced that Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh had been killed in a dawn explosion at his Tehran accommodation. Israel has not yet claimed responsibility. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah said on Thursday that Israel and those behind it must wait for our inevitable response to the killing of Shukr and Haniyeh. Iran and Hamas have also announced retaliation. Clashes continued over the weekend. The Israel Defense Forces, IDF, announced that a key member of Hezbollah's southern front was killed in an Israeli drone strike in southern Lebanon on Saturday. Ali Abd Ali was killed in the attack in the town of Bazurieh, near the coastal city of Sur. The Israel Defense Forces said Ali was one of the main senior members of Hezbollah's southern front and was involved in the planning and execution of numerous attacks. The Israel Defense Forces said that his killing was a significant blow to the functioning of the Southern Front and Hezbollah in the region. The Southern Front is a regional unit of Hezbollah, responsible for Hezbollah's activities in all of southern Lebanon, equivalent to a regional command. A source close to Hezbollah said late Friday that Israel had also attacked a convoy of trucks entering Lebanon from Syria. 3 Israeli airstrikes targeted a convoy of tankers in the Hosh al-Sayyid Ali area on the Syrian-Lebanese border, injuring a Syrian driver, the source told AFP. The source added that this was the latest in a series of Israeli strikes on the border area. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights also reported Israeli strikes in Syrian territory near the Lebanese border, but did not mention casualties. The UK-based observatory, citing sources inside Syria, said the strikes targeted an area near a border crossing between Lebanon and Syria, used by Hezbollah to transport trucks and members of the group. One of the attacks targeted a convoy of lorries, while the other targeted a farm outside the city of Qusair in Homs province, the observatory said in a statement on Saturday. Iranian-backed Hezbollah has a strong presence on both sides of the eastern part of the Lebanese-Syrian border, where it supports the regime of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Meanwhile, the United States is sending more fighter jets and warships to the Middle East amid threats from the Iran-led Axis. The U.S. Department of Defense, Pentagon, has announced that the U.S. military will deploy additional fighter jets and Navy warships to the Middle East as it seeks to bolster its defenses following threats from Iran and its allies Hamas and Hezbollah. The U.S. expects Iran to fulfill its promise to respond to the assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran 2 days ago. It was one of a series of assassinations of senior figures of the Palestinian group during the ongoing war with Israel in Gaza. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin approved the deployment of additional Navy cruisers and destroyers capable of shooting down ballistic missiles to the Middle East and Europe. He is also sending an additional squadron of fighter jets to the Middle East. Austin ordered adjustments to the U.S. military posture to improve the protection of U.S. forces, increase support for Israel's defense, and ensure that the U.S. is prepared to respond to a variety of contingencies, the Pentagon said in a statement. There had been speculation that the Pentagon would not replace the USS Theodore Roosevelt aircraft carrier strike group in the Middle East after completing its ongoing deployment. However, Austin decided to replace it by rotating in the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier strike group. The Pentagon statement also stated that preparations for the deployment of ground-based ballistic missile defense systems will be increased. A senior Pentagon official said that some ships based in the Western Mediterranean will move eastwards, closer to the Israeli coast, in order to provide greater security. Could present unique challenges to efforts to intercept drones and missiles. Secretary Austin has ordered adjustments to the U.S. military posture to improve the protection of U.S. forces, increase support for Israel's defense, and ensure that the United States is prepared to respond to a variety of contingencies. Sabrina Singh, Pentagon Deputy Press Secretary, said in a statement. The statement did not specify when additional fighter jets and warships would arrive, but officials said Friday that additional aircraft would arrive in a few days and naval reinforcements in a slightly longer period. Earlier on Friday, officials were still deciding how many additional aircraft and warships to send. Officials said they were trying to calibrate the American response to send the right types of aircraft and ships as quickly as possible to help defend Israel without appearing to escalate the conflict. At a news conference earlier on Friday, Ms. Singh had raised the possibility that the United States might send additional troops to operate the additional capabilities the Pentagon had sent to the region. She said the support would be of a defensive nature. In a telephone conversation on Friday morning with Mr. Austin's Israeli counterpart Yoav Gallant, Mr. Austin said the United States was committed to helping Israel's defense. We will strengthen our force protection in the region, he said. The Pentagon is also braced for the possibility that Iranian-backed groups, such as the Houthis in Yemen and Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq, could target American troops in the region as part of expected Iranian retaliation for the killing of Mr. Haniyeh this week. In his meeting with Mr. Gallant, Mr. Austin expressed concern about the dangers of escalation. Ms. Singh said that all countries in the region would benefit from de-escalation. In conclusion, the escalating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah is a stark reminder of the fragile balance of power in the Middle East and the far-reaching consequences of regional instability. This conflict not only tests the military capabilities of both sides, but also underlines the significant geopolitical, socioeconomic, and psychological implications for the wider region. The juxtaposition of the effectiveness of Israel's Iron Dome defense system and the resilience of Hezbollah's rocket attacks illustrates a protracted struggle that could destabilize the entire region. The involvement of major powers such as the United States underlines the global risks of this conflict and highlights the urgent need for diplomatic intervention to prevent a wider war. As tensions continue to rise, the international community must navigate a complex web of alliances and hostilities to promote a sustainable peace that secures regional stability and global security. Thank you for watching.